It is July. The air is motionless. The sky offers no rain. Rome is a living body, its pulse throbbing through narrow alleys and over timbered roofs. Here, in the shops and warehouses, fabrics hang heavy from the beams. Amphorae of oil and wine stand beside coils of rope, bales of straw, and barrels of pitch. Only a single spark is needed for it all to become one, all-consuming breath of fire. This is not merely the story of a conflagration. It is the story of a city on fire, and of a power forced to choose. It is a story of whispers and blame, of suspicion, of men running with buckets far too small, and of women clutching their children to their chests. It is the story of one Rome dying and another rising from its embers.
The year is 64 Anno Domini.
Rome is an immense, clamorous, and crowded capital. Its regions are a chaotic blend of sacred temples and fragile, towering tenements. Wooden homes and courtyards overflow with merchandise. The streets are a labyrinth. The wind cuts beet, oil, and the smoke from 1,000 braziers. High above, roofs of tile and sun-dried timber creak under the relentless heat. It is a city built of wood, a city that functions because it burns in countless small hearths. And for that very reason, it can ignite all at once. Along the great length of the Circus Maximus, in the storerooms that feed the capital, precious and perilous goods accumulate. Textiles, reeds, ropes, oils, and grain. Here, men hardened by labor toil through the day. At night, lanterns remain lit. A few stand guard. Others fall asleep against the sacks of wheat. The long, hot days have desiccated everything. The wind blows from a single, constant direction. It is the perfect architecture for a spark to become a firestorm. The blaze arrives in the darkness of an ordinary night. No one will ever pinpoint its precise origin. A single flame draws a breath. It finds the straw, then the wooden beams, then the draperies, then the oil. In an instant, the fire is running along the shops, an animal that has found its trail. Shouts, footsteps, the slam of doors. Some try to smother the flames with wet cloths. Others run to summon the city's watchmen. But the wind crusses. The fire becomes a stampede. It vaults the massive structure as if it were a simple dune. It bites into the Palatine Hill, driving toward the huddled houses, forcing itself into the narrowest streets, and climbing, ever climbing, the wooden stairs. The great tenement blocks, tall as towers, become chimneys. The heat surges upward, dragging the inferno floor by floor, until the roofs surrender, collapsing in a downpour of glowing embers. Beams burn with a long, drawn-out hiss. Plaster crackles, exploding from the walls. Cornices, brittle as shells, shatter and fall. The streets below swell with the tide of humanity. Those with nothing to lose carry only themselves. Those with something to save clutch a single chest, a scroll, a fragment of a life. Children cry. Horses, maddened by the scent of smoke, rear and bolt. Dogs vanish into the chaos. At the threshold of a burning home, a final, impossible choice presents itself. To enter the furnace for what was, or to turn and run for what might be. Most choose time, for the fire does not wait. The city's watchmen arrive, deploying with hooks, ladders, and buckets. They attempt to carve fire breaks into the urban flesh, sacrificing whole rows of buildings to halt the contagion. It is a battle they cannot win. The wind is an invisible general, constantly shifting the front, opening new wounds in the city's defense. Where water lands, the fire feigns retreat, only for another gust to carry it forward 50 paces. Buckets pass from hand to hand, a fragile chain of hope, until it breaks. When a man falls, when a beam gives way, when a narrow alley is consumed and becomes a kiln. The sound is a deafening, hollow roar, the noise of timber being devoured. The sky bleeds from orange into the black of ash. In the homes of the wealthy, courtyards are thrown open, a sanctuary for the fleeing. In the public squares, families gather, shouting names into the smoke-filled air, counting their living and their lost. Someone prays, someone curses, someone sings, a desperate ward against the terror. And in the chaos, looters emerge. For in every catastrophe, there are those who save and those who steal. It is human. It is terrible. It is real.
The emperor is not in the city when it beginnen.
He enters a burning Rome. He understands that extinguishing the flames is not enough. He must give space and time to those left with nothing. He opens his own gardens, his own porticos to the displaced. He orders the distribution of grain at a controlled price, a stay against the coming hunger. But through the smoke, something else travels. Whispers. Some swear they saw men with torches, coaxing new life into dying flames. Others say they were paid. Still others speak of songs heard amid the embers. Every crisis births a legend, and the city, in its agony, demands a culprit. But in these hours, truth has no voice. It has only the sound of a world coming apart. By the second day, Rome is no longer a city. It is a rose of fire, its petals unfurling in every direction. The wind seizes the long, straight avenues, transforming them into corridors of flame. In the winding streets, the heat coils back on itself, ambushing those who believed they had found safety. Every door that opens is a gasp of oxygen, feeding the beast. The fire does more than turn a city to ash. It burns away certainty, leaving behind a scarred landscape where memory, rumor, and history must now compete for the same ground. And what rises from the ruins is never just a new city, but a new story of how the old one was lost. Each window becomes a lung, inhaling air, exhaling fire. The city's own warehouses are its undoing, coffers filled not with treasure, but with fuel, oil, pitch, fabrics, and timber. It is a battle against an enemy with weapons hidden in every quarter. Throngs of people flee toward the Tiber River. Boats are swamped, filled to the very brim. Some struggle across, seeking refuge on the opposite banks. Others remain in the water, clinging to any piece of floating debris, caught in the illusion that the river is a safe frontier. From the safety of the hills, those who escape look down upon Rome, as one would a sea in a violent tempest. They see columns transformed into giant torches, porticos buckling under the heat. Statues, blackened and streaked, appear to weep trails of soot. Night offers no relief. The sky is a canopy of embers. By day, a black shroud steals the sun, turning noon into a foul and suffocating twilight. But the true history of the disaster is found in the countless unrecorded moments. The boy who turns back for his mother's amulet. The old man who simply sits on a threshold, his gaze empty, with nowhere left to go. The dog that refuses to leave its home, then bolts suddenly, never looking back. The merchant who saves his ledgers, and in doing so, loses everything else. This is the very substance of catastrophe, a sum of impossible choices, a catalogue of all that is left to the flames.
When one home gives way, it pulls its neighbor into the abyss. Smoke invades the lungs, confounding thought. The cisterns run dry, the wells are not enough. Among the still glowing ruins, some try to dig, searching for an object, a face, a final breath. Soldiers hold back the would-be rescuers as walls threaten to collapse. It is a brutal choreography. One step forward into the wreckage, 2 steps back from the danger, their feet slipping in the warm ash. 3 days pass, then 4, then 5. The city is a great bellows, inhaling smoke, exhaling embers. The devastation is not uniform. Some districts burn as if meticulously prepared for saccharine. The regions are tallied. In the final accounting, 10 of Rome's 14 will be scarred by the inferno. Some are merely wounded. Others are erased from the map. A reminder of what Rome was before this cursed week. On the 6th day, the roaring begins to fade. It is not peace, it is exhaustion. The city coughs up ash. The wind shifts, pushing the last of the flames against barren walls. The sound of water finally gains the upper hand, of buckets being emptied, of wet cloths suffocating stubborn coals, of hooks pulling down what still threatens to reignite. Someone weeps without a voice. Another laughs, a sound brittle with shattered nerves. For the end of a great fire is never a victory. It is a truce, born of exhaustion, a mutual surrender. The flames fall silent, and in the quiet, the city, too, finally stops. Just as the city dares to draw a breath, a new glow appears on the horizon. A tongue of flame where none was expected. It is a blow from behind. The people run again. The firefighting brigades reorganize. The grappling hooks are once more set to their grim work. This new wave will not last as long as the first, but it is enough to tear open the wounds. And it is here that suspicion hardens into certainty. Someone has given the fire a hand. Someone has willed this pain to continue. The whispers now carry names. On the morning Rome finally stops burning, the light is a bruised, livid gray. The cobblestones are slick with a foul ash. A dark dust coats the walls, staining the hands of any who touch them. In the air hangs the stench of smoke and vinegar. Thousands of people no longer have a home. Many more no longer have a trade. The markets are gone. The workshops are mounds of charcoal. The lines for the grain dole become interminable. They count the dead without ever knowing the count. In the chaos, no one had time to write, to record, to fix the numbers in place. There are only the hollow stairs and the void where a city once stood. At this point, the government cannot merely manage the emergency. The emperor speaks of reconstruction. His words are fast, sharp, decisive. Wider streets, lower houses, internal courtyards, materials less vulnerable to flame. No more narrow alleys that act as flutes for the wind. No more timber where stone can be used. No more workshops sleeping beside warehouses filled with oil and pitch. It is a promise and a threat intertwined. A different Rome will be born from this. But at what price? And with what face? Meanwhile, among the displaced, the dead become accusations. There are those who swear they saw men refusing to extinguish small flames, acting on some unseen order. There are those who speak of a secret plot, that the inferno was a tool to clear the way for a new city, more grandiose, more spectacular. These are words without proof, but the city needs a culprit, as a wounded man needs something to clench in his fist. Every story finds a willing ear. Every voice finds a path through the ruins. The accusations do not remain vague for long. They begin to point in a single, precise direction. The search is on for a group set apart from the others, a people who do not pray to the gods of Rome. They gather in small, hidden homes. They speak. They are few, but they are different enough to seem guilty. In times of fear, difference itself is a death sentence. The arrests begin. Names are named. Confessions are extracted, torn from bodies with the promise of an end to the pain. The punishment becomes public theater. The crowd requires an outlet, and power provides it. They kill for show. They display the dead to educate. Some in the crowd applaud. Some turn their gaze away. But some understand. This is not justice. It is merely peace, a momentary quiet, purchased with another kind of fire. Upon the Oppian and Esquiline hills, a new vision rises from the ash. The emperor traces the city of tomorrow, and at its heart, a dwelling that annuls all that Rome has ever known. Aligned not with stone, but with shimmering reflections. Where streets and shops once stood, gardens now bloom around mirrors of water. At the center, an artificial lake, vast enough to swallow an entire district. This is no mere whim. It is a manifesto. A home built as a theater of absolute power. The people watch. They whisper that the Great Fire cleared the way, not only for new avenues, but for ambitions far too vast for one man. Years from now, upon that watery void, they will raise an immense amphitheater, stone by stone. They will call it the Colosseum. But in this moment, surrounded by charred beams and dark dust, the lake is the most visible scar of a monumental choice. The chronicles do not agree. Some write that the emperor watched the flames as one watches a poem, singing ancient verses as his city burned. Others claim the opposite, that he was far away, and upon his return, opened his own warehouses and gardens to the displaced, imposing strict new laws on the builders. The truth slips between the lines, elusive as smoke between the rooftops. What remains are the powerful images, the ones memory will always prefer over precision. For many, from that July onward, the face of the fire and the face of power would forever mirror one another. On the construction sites, lessons are learned with brutal speed. The streets widen, no longer serving as flutes for the wind. Building heights are reduced, floors reinforced, facades aligned. Internal courtyards are now mandated to break the fire's stride. The very skin of the city changes. Less wood where it once sufficed, more stone, more brick. In the merchant quarters, stores of oil and pitch are moved far from any home. Porticos still offer shade, but they are no longer fuses for the inferno. In the taverns, braziers are caged, and chimneys vent their smoke to the sky, not into the crowded lanes. Every new rule bears the scar of a lesson learned by fire. The city stirs back to life in small gestures. A baker reopens his oven with a new peel. An innkeeper writes 3 tables out of 4. A craftsman nails a sign with hands that still tremble. In the squares, market stalls reappear, first on tarps, then under awnings, and finally in masonry. Children play among pale stones that smell of fresh lime. The people learn to sleep again, without flinching at every gust of wind. The sound of crackling is once more the sound of baking bread. E-cutters, carpenters, furnace workers.
The price of lumber and brick soars. To reach what was lost will take years, but the city is in no hurry. Rome has always been accustomed to conquering time in small bites.
For a city that measures its life not in years but in epochs, destruction is not an end. It is merely the clearing of the stage for the next act. The market's empty. The construction sites swell, absorbing the hands that once sold grain and wares. Labor is relentless, stretching from dawn until, when necessity demands, the flickering glow of oil lamps cuts through the night. Along the principal thoroughfares, new lifelines appear. Public basins and cisterns, a new civic duty is born, to keep buckets and water skins at the ready. The vigiles, the city's watchmen, chart new, rapid courses through the warren of districts. Their patrols intensify, their shifts tightened, a constant presence against the lingering fear. The very topography of the city shifts, in subtle ways legible only to its inhabitants. Familiar streets are straightened, forced into a new, rigid order. Ancient alleyways now terminate abruptly, opening onto airy courtyards where shadows once gathered. On the thresholds of reborn homes, new histories are carved in stone. They bear the names of those who rebuilt a facade, the magistrate who oversaw the works, the very year a family's world was restored. In the quiet of temples and at bustling crossroads, humble offerings appear, the ex votos of survivors, left in silent gratitude for their deliverance. These are not grand statues, but simple wooden tablets, a few small coins, common objects clutched from the blaze. Beyond the city's scarred perimeter, word of fell decay. For others, it is the ultimate testament to the strength of a city that can rise from its own ashes. But for all, the art of building is forever altered. Visitors to Rome now depart with new eyes, carrying with them methods and precautions born of a single, sobering purpose: to buy time against the next flame. The fire is over, the work is not. Rome finds its rhythm once more, but it is a harder, more cautious cadence. There is no rhetoric, only the stark imperative to move forward. This becomes the true inheritance of the inferno, not the ruin, but the resolve. Everything else is merely smoke, scattered by the winds of time.